assume I pressed the wrong button. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Horsham District Council Cabinet meeting on the 19th of March. Many of you were here earlier, but the same housekeeping announcements, fire exits over there. Please make sure your mobile phones and other devices are switched to silent, and please note an audio recording of the meeting is being made and will be published on the Council's website. Item 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Ruth Fletcher. Item 2, the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 29th January are on pages 5 to 18 of the agenda. I move that these minutes are approved as a correct record. Are you in agreement? Agreed. Excellent, thank you. Item 3, declaration of members' interest. Does any member of the Cabinet have an interest to declare relating to any item on the agenda? No, thank you. Item 4, announcements. Do any Cabinet members have any announcements? Chief Executive? No, I don't have any either. Thank you. Item 5, public questions. We have no questions from members of the public that have been received this evening. Probably should have just mentioned up front as well. Myself and the Chief Executive are heading to Southwater Parish Council this evening. Their meeting starts at 7 o'clock, so I'm going to do my best to handle this meeting expeditiously. So there's nothing meant by it if I try and move things on a bit. And also, I've had a request, and I'll use my discretion to do it, to bring forward item 15 to now, essentially, which is Overview and Scrutiny Committee report of the Task and Finish Group lease contracts. So I invite Councillor Paul Clark, Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Lena. First, I'd like to thank Liz Williams and other officers for helping the person who chaired the meeting and the meetings that built up this lease contracts overview. Belinda Walters, who are both sitting on my right-hand side, in case of any awkward questions. Essentially, there was concern over not understanding exactly how properties were leased and what sort of control mechanisms were in place, particularly when soft leases were given or when there was social implications. The investment portfolio was fine, but the lease but community properties had a question against them. And basically, in the papers, you have a list of the properties, etc. Of course, some of the local organisations to which these buildings have been leased provide key services to residents. And so there is, and it's the first time I've ever heard of it, an element of social value. I've never come across this concept before. It was quite interesting to look at. Basically, the paper drafts a definition of social value and framework for calculating it, which you'll find in Appendix D, to allow a consistent approach by officers to measure and report social value against the current plan. Also looked at delegation protocols. So basically, in front of you, it's recommended that this report be considered by Cabinet. There are 3 points to it, A, B, and C. I'll address B first of all. The delegation of the Council's constitution is being reviewed, and basically this item has already been carried out. So basically, the Cabinet doesn't need to consider this point at this time because it's already done. But point A, the social and community value lease discount policies is being looked at to be adopted to look at whatever discount the local organisations can receive when leasing a community property. And C, that we look at this and take it forward for 12 months with the authority delegated to the Director of Place to make minor amendments to the scoring matrix as it goes along for the next 12 months to see how it pans out. That way, delegation protocols are clear, that value for money is obtained on all rental properties, bearing in mind the possible social values. And also in this, we're recognising that organisations which support residents in this district are recognised and supported. Essentially, that is what is being brought to Cabinet to approve. The monitoring officer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Before taking any questions or comment, I'll now hand over to Councillor Knowles if you have any additional comments to make, being as this is your portfolio area regarding recommendations.
Thank you, Leader. No, I don't have any additional comments to make. I think that it's been a really well thought through proposal, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it. It's very important that we are able to review leases in this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. So moving on then, do any other members present have any questions on this report or the recommendations? No? Okay, thank you. Unless I missed one. No. And then any other Cabinet members' comments or queries on this item? No. In which case, I would also like to add my thanks to Councillors Clark and Walters for all the work that's gone into this, and other members of the Task and Finish group and the officers supporting it and working on it as well. It's a great piece of work. Thank you very much. And I agree with so. Can I move to a vote, please? Then all those in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader.
Right then, moving back to the order of the agenda as was. Item 6, supply and delivery of fuel contract. I invite Councillor Jay Mercer, Cabinet Member for Environmental Health, Recycling and Waste, to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. We're currently using around 420,000 litres of HVO fuel per year, delivered in bulk loads of about 35,000 litres a month. The current contract was set up to consider the best price per litre for diesel, but it's now accepted that using HVO ensures lower tailpipe emissions and is the preferred fuel of choice for all Horsham District Council vehicles. And we are currently therefore purchasing the HVO on an ad hoc basis. A new fuel contract would therefore allow us to achieve the best price per litre for HVO, keeping the spend as low as possible over the life of the contract, especially considering food waste is coming in, or domestic food waste is coming in March 2026, which will increase our vehicle numbers by an additional 15. The contract process we need to take part in is likely to go through for a 1st of May 2025 outcome. Indicative savings from accessing the Crown Commercial Services Framework are anticipated to be around 4% to 5% of current costs, and this could equate to a reduction in annual spend of between £21,000 and £26,000 based on £1.25 a litre, the current spend. So this report is asking to approve the award for the supply of HVO, hydrotreated vegetable oil, and to delegate to the Director of Communities in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democratic Services to enter into a contract with the winning bidder when the next Crown Commercial Services Framework aggregation procurement process is run, and the recommendation is specified on page 19.
Thanks very much, Jay. Are there any questions or comments from other members present in relation to these recommendations? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Leader. Totally get the use of HVO, but the question that runs through the back of my mind, and I don't know if officers have done this or not, or whether the Cabinet members looked at it, is have we actually looked at the background to HVO and determined how big the pool is compared to other people using it? For me, HVO basically is chippy fat and cooking fats basically that have been hydrogenated. I'm not sure that hydrotreated vegetable oil is done deliberately from virgin raw materials, but it might be. And I'm just flagging in my concern that we need to be not vulnerable to a tightening up of the pool and therefore experiencing higher costs than would be otherwise by using the alternative. So I'm just flagging in some concern, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Jay?
I'd come back to you, I think, with some more information about that, Councillor Clark, if I may. I don't have it to hand.
Sorry, I come from the oil and gas industry, so yeah.
Any other members? No? Any other members of the Cabinet wish to comment on this one? No? In which case, can I ask for a show of hands, please, in favour of the recommendation? Okay, that's unanimous as well. Thank you very much. Item 7 is Enterprising Horsham, Economic Prospectus and Business Charter. I invite Councillor Joanne Knowles, Cabinet Member for Enterprise and Property, to introduce this report.
Thank you very much, Leader. I would like again to thank the officers who've done a lot of work on this. Rob Leet is with us this evening, and Greg MacDonald as well has worked really hard on getting us to a great spot. Further to my presentation at the September Cabinet, seeking approval to undertake consultations on Enterprising Horsham, which is our new economic vision, as many of you will have heard, and set of priority actions, I'm pleased to present the latest versions of the Economic Prospectus and Business Charter for your consideration and approval. Since papers were sent out and following further feedback last week, which built on the comments at ONS, we've decided to remove numbers from the document, reducing emphasis slightly on the green agenda. We want to both ensure that our businesses are as resilient as possible in the face of climate challenges, and as a council that we support them on their journey to reduce their carbon use, whilst also continuing to support businesses to meet the issues and opportunities that they face today. The documents have been updated in a number of places to provide more detail on some of the priority actions, such as the sector focus, to sharpen up the fairer and greener narrative, and to highlight the importance of collaboration in driving delivery. Much of the feedback from the consultations will be used to help shape and drive forward the 12 priority actions over the coming months. I feel the real opportunity for gains within the enterprise will be on the focus for a one council approach to support delivery. This will be critical to ensure that all council services are aligned behind Enterprising Horsham. Also, in this context, enterprise and entrepreneurship will not only be key themes for what we are seeking to nurture across our economy, but will also be important themes for the way in which we work together with our local and strategic partners to drive delivery and secure prosperity for all. I therefore recommend you to approve and adopt the prospectus and charter, and equally importantly to delegate and make minor changes in liaison with me. And the third recommendation is to delegate approval to all other documents that form part of the economic development framework as laid out on pages 23 to 100. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joanne. Any comments or questions on the recommendations from other members present? Councillor Circus.
I was glad, Leader, to have the opportunity at ONS of expressing a little bit of concern at one of the results of the consultation, which was the reaction of local businesses to environmental initiatives. I think we have to recognise that when we consult, we have to be ready to engage with what we get back in terms of responses to consultation. The problem is that we have to face the fact that environmental initiatives cost. They put a cost on individual members of the public through higher energy costs, and business recognises that they put a cost on them as businesses. And the outlook for businesses at the moment has been has not been a very promising one because of all the issues we know about, the increase in national insurance on employees and so forth. And I would just express the hope that we wouldn't impose our views about issues like the environment on businesses, but recognise from their point of view that they are struggling at the moment very much in a climate that is not very supportive of business, and recognise their concerns and try and carry businesses with us rather than imposing our views on them and not recognising their very legitimate concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Serkis. I understand what you're saying there. I would also just note that these things do come with a cost, but not taking action on the environment comes with a cost to us all as well. Councillor Knowles, do you have any other comments you wanted to make in response to that?
Thank you, Leader, very briefly, and thank you very much, Councillor Serkis, for that. Absolutely, we know that we need to meet people where they are and to work with them, to move them forward and to support them with the needs that they have at the moment. We know what the issues are with the nighttime economy, and also, but you'll be pleased to hear that I met with a lot of businesses on Monday evening, and they were delighted at the support that they've been getting from Horsham District and the enterprise team through Sussex 6, and we are working really hard to make sure that we do support our local businesses.
Thank you. Any comments from any other members? No? Councillor Raby.
Yeah, I just wanted to pitch in that environmental benefits for businesses aren't always costs. We put on 50 kilowatts of solar panels on our barns, and it's saving us money. That was a cost benefit. So it's not always an additional burden, although I totally understand where you're coming from, Councillor Serkis. It's just that it's not always a dichotomy that environmental things add costs always, and maybe we want to lean where it benefits businesses and the environment, and there's opportunities to get a win-win. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Any other comments from Cabinet members? No, in which case, can we have a show of hands, please, in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 8, adoption of amended Horsham Town local list. In the absence of Councillor Ruth Fletcher, I invite Councillor Joanne Knowles, Cabinet Member for Enterprise and Property, to introduce this report.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm going to stand in for Ruth this evening, so you'll see a bit of me. The adoption of the amended Horsham Town local list. I'd like to thank again the officers who've been working on this, especially Nicola, who's here this evening. The locally listed buildings are a type of non-designated heritage asset. They are buildings of local historic and architectural significance that are designated by local planning authorities. Whilst locally listed buildings do not have the same protection as listed buildings, their local heritage interest is a material consideration in the planning process and is recorded as a local land charge. Horsham District has an existing local list for Horsham Town, and there is also a list in Stenning, and other locally listed buildings have been identified across the district as part of recent conservation area appraisals through the neighbourhood plans by local communities and from time to time as part of the consideration of planning applications. The original list for Horsham Town was approved in 2011. The Horsham Society has undertaken a review of buildings within Horsham Town in consultation with the Council's Senior Conservation Officer. They identified an additional 60 buildings to add to the list. The Horsham Society carried out a public consultation on the proposed additions to the list. 2 letters of support and 1 letter of objection were received in response to the consultation. This led to 1 building being removed from the list. Following the public consultation, the Horsham Society submitted the extended list of buildings to be considered by Horsham District Council. The submitted list has been scrutinised by the Council's Senior Conservation Officer and it is considered that the list is in accordance with the criteria of locally listed buildings, well written and robust. This report therefore seeks to formally adopt this amended list of locally listed buildings. Once adopted, officers will contact all the properties identified to confirm the designation and to explain the effects of owning a locally listed building. So I commend to you the report, which is on page 101 to 122, to be approved this evening.
Thanks very much, Joanne. Could I invite any questions or comments from members? Councillor Circus.
I strongly support local listing. I think it's important to preserve our heritage. And I'm very pleased that we're taking local listing seriously. I know that there are limitations on the protection that gives, but it still denotes the fact that we as a council regard these buildings as having some importance and deserve to be protected and their protection enhanced. Can I just ask the question, to which I think I know the answer I'll get, but I'm still going to ask it, which is that when HDC is no more and we've passed over responsibilities to a new unitary authority, can we be reasonably assured that the local lists will be preserved and taken seriously by the planning department of whatever takes over from HDC planning department in due course? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Circus. I don't know whether Joanne will be able to help any more than I will with this one, but that would be my wish and my hope and my reasonable belief, but I'm not taking anything for granted at the moment. But although I will say that to the extent that it's in the hands of officers, they're all trained, qualified and conscientious, whatever organisation they are a part of, and they have standards to uphold. So a great deal of confidence comes from that. But Joanne.
No, I don't have anything further to add to that, Leader, but I would like to ask the officer if she has anything further to add. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Joanne. I think I might be able to help. That whilst the local list is not a statutory function, as members are aware, I completely agree with the Leader that it would be a very strong recommendation that was to be retained, but unfortunately we're not in a position to be able to guarantee that because it isn't part of the regulatory function. But nevertheless, exactly as the Cabinet member said, all of those fully qualified officers, I'm sure, would be giving similar recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Leader. I'm surprised no one else has asked this question before, and perhaps I've overlooked something. I'm very pleased to hear about the Horsham Town local list, but the whole of the council covers a rather large district, and there are many other listed buildings which require protection. Especially with the envisaged changes in the planning laws. And I was very pleased we had Planning South yesterday, where a local heritage building is being protected by a new scheme by putting a green belt around it. But that doesn't feature, that particular building would not feature in a Horsham district list of listed assets. Are we intending, is this council intending to undertake the same sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think, sorry. But the same kind of enterprise across the whole of the district to check all our listed buildings and offer some protection with the new planning regime? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Knoll. Obviously, I don't know the answer to that. I'll hand over to others in a moment. But I think instinctively, one of the issues here is if I think, it's kind of similar to neighbourhood planning and other things, quite a lot of the work towards this has been undertaken by the Horsham Society, who are a civic society, rather than actually by the council. So I think part of this comes from the community or non-council organisations. So it depends on what you have in the places where you are, I would imagine. And so there are some in Steyning, I understand from this, and other areas. But I'll pass over to others who might know more than me. I'll go to Joanne and then see what Joanne does.
Thank you, Leader. Just briefly, there is also a list in Steyning, and other locally listed buildings have been identified across the district, and that happens on an ongoing basis. So when there's a planning application, or when we look at a recent conservation area appraisal, any locally listed, any buildings that are appropriate to be locally listed are then considered when that comes up. And also through the preparation of local neighbourhood plans. So that does happen on a rolling basis. It's constantly being added to. And if councillors have any locally listed buildings that they would like to add, I suggest that they ask the officers to consider them.
Roger?
Thank you, Leader. Perhaps this might be a new task for the newly empowered parishes in the future to look at the buildings within their parishes, identify them and bring forward some kind of protection for them. So this is one of the things that LGR may well benefit from. Thank you.
Possibly so. I'm just going to ask if the Director of Place had any additional comments on this, if that's okay. Or to correct me if I'm wrong anywhere.
I didn't, thank you, Leader. I thought the Cabinet Member answered that absolutely specifically, but I also agree with Councillor Knowles' suggestion that there is definitely a contribution to be made from the communities as part of this work.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. It wasn't clear, or maybe I misunderstood. Horsham Society's gone and done the work and got a list. They've got a list, and the list is now in our official paperwork, I'll put it that way. What wasn't clear to me from what the Cabinet Member said was we know of other listed buildings around the place, around the rest of the district. What's not clear to me is whether that is knowledge that the planning department has, which is fine, but not part of a formal list. If you see, the point I'm trying to make is, how formalized is it outside of the town? And if it isn't, then maybe we should be making it more formal. And if it is formal, then the Director of Place can tell me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Joanne, or straight over to Barbara? Or
I'm going to delegate to the absolute expert, Nicola. Thank you.
thanks.
Good evening. With regards to the local list, we do have the Steyning local list and the Horsham local list. And for the planning teams, it is shown on our mapping system, where we have had buildings that have come forward through planning applications, and the same for the conservation area appraisals. At the back of the newly adopted conservation area appraisals, there's also an appendix which includes those locally listed buildings, so they're visible as far as that goes. But we would also sorry, I've lost my train of thought. But yes, it's also a land charge. So anybody who is looking to buy a property, it would show up on their property details that the building is a locally listed building. So it's known in that respect. As I say, it's also on our mapping system. It is in the conservation area appraisals, and also the neighbourhood plans show that detail as well as locally listed buildings.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Clark. Okay, any other comments from Cabinet members on this item? No, in which case, again, I'll move to a vote. Please, a show of hands in favour of the recommendations. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Hit the jackpot this evening, Joanne, haven't you?
I really have.
So item 9, interim infrastructure delivery plan. Again, in the absence of Councillor Fletcher, I invite Councillor Joanne Knowles, Cabinet Member for Enterprise and Property, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Leader. You're going to have to bear with me on this one because there have been some things that need to be clarified. So before I introduce this report in more detail, there are some clarifications I need to make. in relation to this report. Unfortunately, due to a technical issue, an old version of the Cabinet report documentation for item 9 was added to the Cabinet agenda. Firstly, I would like to clarify that appendices 1 and 3 corresponding to this agenda item should be disregarded. Appendix 2, the Interim Infrastructure Delivery Plan, or IDP, is the document being discussed this evening. All members should now have seen a version of the Interim Infrastructure Delivery Plan, which includes clarifications made following discussion at the report at overview and scrutiny. I will return to these amendments shortly. This council is committed to building thriving and sustainable communities, and one way of achieving this is by ensuring development in the district also delivers the infrastructure, facilities and services they need. Since the 1st of October 2017, the Council has been able to collect a community infrastructure level, or CIL, on all eligible developments thanks to the adoption of its CIL charging schedule. CIL is used to fund the delivery of infrastructure. A proportion of CIL funding is passed directly onto neighbourhood, parish and neighbourhood councils to spend directly. The remainder is used by HDC to deliver infrastructure projects. This council's CIL governance arrangements, which were adopted in 2019, require projects to be set out in an IDP before they can be considered for further CIL funding. The council's current IDP was adopted in 2016 and is out of date. Many of the projects contained in it do not have any reasonable prospect of being delivered or are simply no longer required. This means we are currently unable to spend CIL on much needed infrastructure. As you will all be aware, last year the council submitted a local plan to the Planning Inspectorate for examination. The local plan is supported by a new IDP which identifies the infrastructure which is needed to support the development identified within the local plan. It is a result of the detailed engagement with infrastructure providers, including West Sussex County Council and the NHS Integrated Care Board, and feedback from parishes and neighbourhood councils. Unfortunately, the examination of the plan has been paused, and so too has the progress of the IDP. Currently, there is no indication as to when the examination of the local plan will continue or what the timeframe for it being adopted will be. In light of the uncertainty over the local plan, we have produced the interim IDP. This iteration of the IDP contains a collection of projects where we have evidence, either through our own evidence-based documents or through engagement with relevant infrastructure providers, that there is a need to improve or enhance infrastructure provision, whether the further development comes forward as part of the local plan or not. It should be noted that the projects identified in the IDP are not necessarily sufficiently progressed for all detail on delivery, costings and timescale to be included in the IDP. This is not necessary for inclusion on the IDP, and where possible, indicative information has been included. As you will recall, following the overview and scrutiny, some updates have been made to the IDP, but due to technical issues were not included on the agenda report. The changes made are as follows. The following text has been inserted into the end of paragraph 4.3. It is intended to provide a list of projects which can be considered for CIL funding through the process set out in the CIL governance arrangements. There is recognition in the production of the document that projects may not be progressed enough on all detail on cost, delivery and timescales to be known. However, it is expected that this information will be established over time. The end of paragraph 4.8 is amended so it reads, although not all of these will necessarily be included in the schedule subject to evidence of need. Consequently, I propose that the recommendations 1 is amended to allow the above changes to be made to the plan before it is published. If approved today, the new IDP will effectively unlock this pot of SIL funds by providing a list of projects we can begin to assess in line with our SIL governance arrangements. To support this process, I am also proposing some amendments to our agreed governance arrangements. These changes will allow us to do 3 things differently. Firstly, we propose to shorten the timeframe on projects which will go into the SIL spending plan from 5 years to 3. This means we can prioritise the projects which are most deliverable in the short to medium term and ensure that we can start to spend the SIL funding which has accumulated. Secondly, we propose to shorten the review cycle of the IDP document, so we review the IDP annually rather than triannually. This will ensure the projects we are considering for SIL funding continue to reflect the infrastructure needs across Horsham District. This review will continue to include engagement with infrastructure providers and our parish and neighbourhood councils. Thirdly, it is proposed that the membership of the Politically Balanced Infrastructure Projects Working Group, who will review the shortlist of infrastructure projects being considered for SIL, will be set up by the Cabinet Member of Planning and Infrastructure, as well as the Director of Place, to keep the process as transparent and open as possible. Therefore, I recommend that the recommendations in this report on pages 123 to 274, together with the amendment I have proposed, is agreed. And I'd like to thank the officers, especially Julia Hayes, who is here to answer questions, along with Emma.
Yes, could I allow a comment from the monitoring officer, please?
Councillor Knowles, I believe you're also making an amendment to these recommendations to provide that Cabinet is taking these decisions this evening and that they're not being elevated to full council.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay then. Any questions or comments from other members present on the recommendations as proposed amended? Nope. Other cabinet members? Okay. Because I can't help myself, I'll just note that. Okay, Roger, did you have your hand up before? I didn't see it.
Yeah,
or were you
yeah,
just
yeah,
looking surprised that no one else had said anything?
I just wanted an explanation or an extrapolation of the explanation on why this is not coming to council and just being agreed by Cabinet, please, if the monitoring officer could explain very briefly.
Because this is an executive function, so it has to be discharged by the Cabinet, so it's not right to be elevated to full council. And the reason why this recommendation is reflected in this report is because it was pulled through from our ModGov system erroneously. So the previous version was incorrect and didn't get uploaded.
Okay, yes, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, and my other tiny note that I have to put in, because someone somewhere will be listening, and if I don't tweak it, neighbourhood SIL is not actually passed directly to the neighbourhood councils in the same way that it's passed to parish councils. It is held by the district council and consulted with them on how it's used. Someone will pick me up on it if I don't clarify it. Right then, in which case, can I move to a show of hands in favour of the recommendations, please? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 10, Member Development Framework and Programme 2025-26. I invite Councillor Tony Frankland, Cabinet Member for Performance, Customer Service and Communications, to introduce this report.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And let me remind everyone, this arose out of the governance peer review in this time a year ago, where it was recommended that the Council expands its member development framework to include a continuous training programme for new and existing members, cabinet members, chairs of committees, oversight and scrutiny, etc. What we have done is consult with other councils on how they manage this process, and we've put together this framework, which consists of 2 documents, Appendix 1 and 2, which you have, which outline the firstly the methods really which we can use to identify what types of training individual members might need, and where that training might be delivered, the routes of training, etc., and also to identify the essential training, the statutory training that certain members will need if they're on planning committees, for example, or in audit committees or other such committees where specific requirements are needed for training. It also includes details on the huge variety of training that is available through the LGA, and identifies where to access that training and how to select training modules from that system. I've taken some time to look at that system myself and undertaken a couple of the training modules. The Biodiversity Net Gain module is fascinating. I have to say I learned an enormous amount in using that module, and I would recommend them to all the members. There will be a member briefing on this, which is next Tuesday, and I have circulated the details of this to all the members in the last day or so. I would like to thank the Director of Resources for the work that he's helped me with on this, and also Councillor Circus and Councillor Croker, who took a bit of time to review the documents as they came through and made some suggested amendments to those which have been incorporated. So I think that's where we're at the moment. I'm looking forward to the member briefing session next week, where we get an opportunity to answer questions and incorporate further suggestions over time. This is not something that needs to be cast in stone. So we look forward to that meeting next week. But I recommend that that we adopt this policy, these procedures, and improve really our ability to demonstrate compliance with good practice in terms of ensuring that members are well equipped to conduct the roles that they have within the council.
Thanks, Tony. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Franklin. I am fully in favour of training, all training. We all need training, and we should all take it at every opportunity, and I'm looking forward to Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Anything from any other members present? Councillor Circus.
I would just say that I'd like to say a big thank you to Councillor Franklin, because when I and Councillor Croker went through the documents, it was quite obvious that Councillor Franklin had spent a great deal of, put a lot of thought and effort and time into thinking about the issue and putting it, committing it to paper. And so I think if we're going to thank people, I think we should record thanks to Councillor Franklin for the enormous commitment and energy he's put into this project.
Thanks very much, Philip. That's very good of you. Anything from any other members? Any comments from other cabinet members? No. Well, seeing as in my professional life, I'm going through the process now of having to have my CPD records checked by my professional body as part of a spot check. It's very front of mind for me at the moment, and I'm glad that we're doing what we can to enable continuous professional development of our own sort within the council. So thanks very much, as Councillor Circus says, for your work on this, Tony. Could I ask for a show of hands in favour of the recommendations, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 11 then, Habitat Bank criteria. I invite Councillor Colette Blackburn, Cabinet Member for Climate Action and Nature Recovery, to introduce this report.
Actually, Leader, I'm going to be introducing this report.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right.
Oh,
Can I carry on?
I thought I thought you'd done quite a few already, Joanne.
Yes,
but
no,
yeah,
I
carry
should
on.
have. Absolutely. I don't know how it's happened. I do know how it's happened because this is under Ruth's remit, and I'm covering her today. But it's across both areas. You're right. So the Horsham District Council's Habitat Bank criteria. As many of you, and I think all of us are aware, the UK is one of the most biodiversity depleted countries in the world. Human activity, including new development, has the potential to adversely impact biodiversity, and biodiversity net gain, BNG requirements, have been introduced to help address this problem while allowing development to continue. Whilst many developments within Horsham District have been able to deliver biodiversity net gain within the development sites, this is unfortunately not always possible. Habitat banks can help address this by creating habitat on an area of land that delivers a measurable uplift in biodiversity and selling the resulting biodiversity units to developers who need to offset their BNG requirement. For a Habitat Bank to sell biodiversity units, they must be registered on the National Biodiversity Gains Site Register. This requires the Habitat Bank provider to undertake all necessary assessments to determine the type and amount of biodiversity units the land can generate. The proposed biodiversity uplift must also be secured by a legal agreement. One way for a Habitat Bank to obtain a legal agreement is by approaching local planning authorities to enter into a Section 106 agreement. The role of the local planning authority in these agreements is solely to ensure that the Habitat Bank provider undertakes their proposed habitat enhancement and land management activities in accordance with the agreement, and to monitor the progress over a 30-year period. It is considered that it is appropriate for our council to help enable prospective Habitat Bank providers to become registered on the National Register. It is recognised that the new development will continue to come forward in Horsham District, and this approach will help to ensure that much needed biodiversity enhancement also takes place alongside this development. There is currently only one known Habitat Bank within the district, with potentially 3 more being set up soon. Therefore, assisting with the registration of Habitat Banks will increase the availability of off-site solutions for local development and prevent BMG being delivered outside of the district. Further benefits will include unlocking potential Habitat Banks along strategic routes such as Wilder Horsham District Nature Recovery Network and the upcoming Local Nature Recovery Strategy, contributing towards connecting habitats on a landscape scale. There is currently no statutory guidance on assessing prospective habitat banks, and therefore the proposed Habitat Bank criteria, following a 3-stage process as presented in the appendix of the report, aims to ensure that the Council takes a fair and consistent approach in considering proposals, and checking that they align with the Council's expectation in providing good quality habitat in appropriate locations. The stages include an initial desk-based feasibility assessment, followed by an invitation to discuss the potential Habitat Bank further, and finally the signing of a legal agreement. And finally the signing of a legal agreement. So the report recommends that Cabinet agree the Council's approach to support Habitat Bank providers as outlined in the report to enable the delivery of off-site BNG where it cannot otherwise be achieved on-site. To approve the proposed Habitat Bank criteria document to be used for assessing suitability and viability of proposed habitat banks. And finally, note that the Director of Place will authorise the entering into of any associated legal agreements to give effect to these recommendations as pursuant to her delegation contained in the Constitution. This is laid out in pages 285 to 296, and I'd like to thank the officers, especially Lindsay King and Helen Peacock, who are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joanne. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Knowles. I think this is absolutely excellent. I think it's so exciting because we all want BNG on site. It's not always possible. We've got one in our ward where it's not possible, and I'd like that BNG to happen within the district. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Leader. I just want a little bit of clarification on this. I know that the papers say that a number of Habitat Bank providers have contacted the council. What's the process by which these Habitat Bank providers are going to be assessed and selected? Are we going to do it totally in-house? Are we using outside agencies? Or is it going to be a matter of first come, first served?
Joanne.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you, Councillor Knoll. I'd like to refer to the officers to answer that question, so you get the latest answer on it.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. It's a good question. We haven't come up with an internal process note yet. It is going to be the next piece of work that we do. We would have to be looking at internal resourcing capacity. Whether we take that externally will be down to what we determine at that time. But I think the current thought process is it will be internal to begin with, for the first couple at least. And until we get more and more coming through, the BNG market's in its infancy at the moment. So it will depend on how that grows in the future.
Thank you. I'll keep my eye on it. Thank you.
Anything from any other members? No? Any comments? I was getting there. Colette.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to say that I welcome the approach set out in this Cabinet report. The staging and checklist for potential Habitat Banks provides a clear, consistent and transparent way for landowners to provide local off-site BNG units via Section 106 agreement with the Council for development that is also local for the district. The resource will align well with the Council's Wilder Horsham District Initiative. As members know, one of the project's main activities is providing advice and support to landowners who want to enhance wildlife on their land. For some landowners, selling BNG units will secure the income needed to support the enhancement of existing habitats on their property, as well as the creation of new environmental havens. The Wilder Horsham District team is already in discussion with some landowners who want to do just that. Where developers are concerned, the Council will not dictate which Habitat Banks developers should use and will not market the sites. However, having an S106 agreement in place will ensure that these are high quality proposals that are monitored by the Council to ensure they do in fact deliver the intended biodiversity improvements. The ultimate aim of Wilder Horsham District is to create nature recovery networks across the district. This will be a combination of new or improved along joined up corridors and stepping stone connections, which support wildlife moving through the landscape to and from hunting, feeding and breeding grounds. Therefore, the second stage of the process referenced in this Cabinet report will necessitate demonstrating how a proposal will contribute to the Horsham District Nature Recovery Network. In this way, the Habitat Bank provides a direct link to achieving the aspirations of Wilder Horsham District, and I commend it to Cabinet members. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much, Colette. Any others? No, in which case we'll move to the vote then, please. Could I have a show of hands in favour of the recommendations? Me as well. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right. Item 12, Hackney Fair Tariff Review. I invite Councillor Jay Mercer, Cabinet Member for Environmental Health, Recycling and Waste, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Leader. Just to remind everybody, Hackney carriages are the cabs that we hail and that charge on a meter, as opposed to pre-booked hire cars. Horsham District Council received a formal request to review an increase to the fare tariffs charged by licensed Hackney carriages in the district. And this request was in light of the rising cost of living, rising inflation, the ongoing negative impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the industry, and costs having increased. And the council, as the licensing authority, is the appropriate authority for the purposes of setting Hackney carriage rates or fares in accordance with section 65 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. This is the maximum charge that can be levied in respect of a journey, and licensed Hackney carriage drivers can charge no more than the maximum metered fare as set by the licensing authority. And in determining a reasonable fare, a number of factors have needed to be considered, primarily having regard to the needs of the travelling public in terms of what is reasonable to expect people to pay, but also the need to give taxi drivers the ability to earn an income and thereby provide a service where needed. The review has considered taxi proprietors often have differing business practices and that running costs may vary between businesses. The method used in calculating taxi fares was established by Guildford Borough Council's licensing team and has proven to be tried and tested in the courts and is therefore considered to be legally robust. For clarity, this process is not intended to recompense inefficient business practice or for figures that differ greatly from the average, for example, higher salaries or costs of diverting telephones, etc., or not charging the full tariff amount. For these reasons, an average calculation has been used to calculate any changes to the charge per mile. I should also say that the review has been discussed at 2 meetings of the relevant PDAG, including one to which the licensing committee members were invited. As a result, the proposed increase would take the cost for a 2-mile journey in Horsham from £7 to £7.94. This would place Horsham fares slightly below the median fare in West Sussex, which is £8, and in the lower quartile of fares in West Sussex. And as a result, I recommend to you that the Cabinet should agree the method of calculating Hackney carriage fares as set out in Appendix A of the report, to approve the revised table of fares as set out in Appendix B to the report, to agree that the revised table of fares be subject to a further short consultation, and to delegate authority to the Head of Environmental Health and Licensing to undertake any necessary action in connection with that consultation. And to note that the revised table of fares will be effective from the 11th of April 2025 if no objections are received during the consultation period.
Thanks very much, Jay. And thanks very much also to the officers for the work that's gone into this, because I know we wanted to look at it quite closely. Councillor Circus.
Thank you, Leader. This is slightly off the subject matter, but I hope you'll allow me to ask this. There is, of course, an inspection regime for hire cars. Can the Cabinet member tell me where the inspections are now taking place? Is that operative from now, or is that operative from the end of our tenancy at Parkside, which I believe is the last day of May? And have we, and I assume we have, told all those who run hire car businesses, have we told them when and where this all operates from? Thank you, Leader.
I think it's about 100 yards that way, but I'm sure others can put it more eloquently than me.
I don't know about eloquently, but I certainly saw 2 marked off bays in the car park as we came in. But I refer to the head of service who will give me the act.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yes, we have a taxi inspection bay which is demarked outside in the car park out there. But of course, we do carry out additional inspections with regards to vetting of drivers, assessing their competency to drive, and we undertake, or we always use MOT specified organisations to actually make sure the vehicles are fit and proper for us to be authorising as cabs. So there's a multiple layer of inspection, if you like. But yes, we have 2 designated bays, and all the drivers were made aware of it, and they have been used.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item from other members present? No. Anything from other members of the Cabinet? Mark?
Just a very brief one. Unlike most charges and fares, these are fares charged by the taxi operators for themselves, and I just want to make clear that the council does not receive any percentage or compensation in any way.
Thanks, Mark. Oh, Joanne?
Thank you, Leader. Just briefly, I'm absolutely delighted that we are supporting our taxi drivers. As we all know, it's not always possible to find a taxi in Horsham. And the enterprise team over the next couple of weeks, will be working with the communications team and with licensing to redesign the relevant web pages to make sure that the application process, while remaining unchanged, could be made clearer and more user-friendly. The redesign aims to simplify navigation and make it easier for prospective drivers to understand the steps involved. Once these improvements are complete, we plan to share Thinking of Becoming a Taxi Driver and Here's How to Do It feature in our local business and jobs email newsletters. Additionally, we're considering a targeted social media approach to ensure that the key aspects of the process are being effectively communicated to those that are interested. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joanne. So I think we'll move to a vote on this one, please. All those members in favour, please show. Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, J again, item 13, amendment to the private sector housing enforcement policy. So J, if you, Cabinet Member for Environmental, Health, Recycling, Waste, if you could introduce this one.
Thank you, Leader. The Council's private sector housing enforcement policy lays out the way that the private sector housing team approaches enforcement of the Housing Act 2004 and any related laws to ensure that tenanted properties are safe and healthy places to live. The policy attempts to be clear for both landlords and tenants to understand and for the enforcement officers to use in their daily work. And this policy is revised regularly to take account of new legislation and guidance. The private sector housing team has worked with our legal team to revise and update the working document along the lines of the guidance provided by Operation Jigsaw, which was set up by the government to encourage councils to prepare for the upcoming Renters' Rights Bill and to improve standardisation of enforcement policies nationwide. There are small changes to the body of the policy, with an additional section to include powers to enforce minimum energy efficiency standards, or MEES, you love the acronyms, don't you, in rented homes, and a wholesale change to the civil penalties policy, which forms Appendix 2. These changes should improve clarity for all affected by the policy and help the Council prepare for the increased use of civil penalties which are likely to come with the new powers outlined in the Renters' Rights Bill. The resulting document retains our core principles. Advice and encouragement are offered before turning to enforcement if and when poor standards are not being improved. I therefore recommend to you on page 317, Cabinet's asked to approve and adopt the amended private sector housing enforcement policy as set out in Appendix A, and to delegate authority to the Head of Environmental Health and Licensing in consultation with myself to make such minor amendments to the policy as may be required following adoption, provided that any such amendments are consistent with and don't undermine the policy and give effect to statutory requirements.
Thanks, Jay. Other members present, any comments or questions on these recommendations? Don't see any. Other members of the Cabinet? No, in which case let's move to the vote on this one, please. All those in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And on to this one. Yep, item 14, the Capitol refurbishment project. I invite Councillor David Skip, Cabinet Member for Leisure, Culture and Green Spaces, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Leader. This is a report which sets out a revised approach to the delivery of the refurbishment of the Capitol Theatre following the decision which was made in October 24 to suspend the original project as a result of increased project costs. The report sets out that improvements to the theatre will be delivered over two periods in 2025 and 2026 at a total project cost of 10.2 million. It primarily focuses on the works that are proposed to be undertaken in 25-26, and a report on the works proposed for 26 will be subject to a report to Cabinet and Council in July 2025 and or October 2025. So this is a progress report as to where we are. As you're aware, it's been a difficult few months, and the officers have been working incredibly hard to rescope and reschedule the project since the decision was made in October 24 not to proceed with the project as originally designed due to the escalation of project costs that became apparent as the project progressed through its planning stages. And the increase in cost was largely associated to the mechanical, electrical and public health systems and escalating material costs. So this is where we are. The work is proposed to be done in two tranches, and I'll go through those if I may with you, so that you know what's happening. Phase 1 will be in April to September this year, and that will include the auditorium. The auditorium will close between April and May, and during this period the asbestos in the roof and crawl spaces will be removed. We'll also take the opportunity to repair the fabric and the worst of the seats, so they are of a reasonable standard for the planned autumn and panto season. Roof essential repairs and improvements will be carried out in this period so that the building is watertight in advance of the main refurbishment in 2026. And there will be an intrusive structural survey of the studio roof in preparation for any strengthening needed to accommodate the air source heat pumps. And funding for this element of the works has already been included in the 25-26 capital programme. Surveys, a range of surveys will be carried out, including fire, compartmentation, plaster adhesion, acoustics and paint testing. Mechanical, electrical, public health validation. Additional work is needed to properly understand the MEP situation so that the effectiveness of air source heat pumps can be assessed and services designed appropriately, and it's important we get that absolutely right. A report detailing this will be provided in July. Planning application advice is being sought on the siting of the air source heat pumps above the roof of the studio and any mitigation necessary. And equipment replacement of essential equipment which has reached end of life and is now prone to regular breakdown or failure will be ensured so that we can deliver quality offer for our customers. We hope the expectation is that the cinemas can remain operational throughout 2025, but this is dependent on the requirements of asbestos removal, containment, and if necessary, they will have to close along with the auditorium in April and May. Once the asbestos removal has been completed, a late spring-summer programme of activities and workshops will be developed, and an autumn programme and panto has also been scheduled. Phase 2 will be from January to October 2026. There will be a complete refurbishment of the auditorium, and that includes the replacement of the seating and plus increased capacity once the seating design has been completed. So we are looking to improve the auditorium considerably, and there will be improved accessibility, redecoration, recarpeting, plus improvements to lighting. Cinemas, both cinemas will be completely refurbished. This includes replacement and reduction of seating to offer an enhanced customer experience, and again redecoration, recarpeting, and improvement to projectors. And we've already had a projector which failed completely, and we had to replace. Sadly, we lost 2 performances in the cinemas with 300 people. Unfortunately, couldn't come and see what they wanted to. So we are at a time when the equipment is getting to the end of its life. We're hoping to improve the public spaces. The toilets will be reconfigured. Air source heat pumps will be installed, but we need to do the provisional work, which we will be doing this year in preparation for that. Upgrading of the power supply if necessary. So there is a lot of work that will be carried out next year. And this year we are looking to do the surveys and improve our knowledge of what will be required next year. So that is where we are with the capital at present. I would ask that also that this cabinet will be making recommendations subject to the budget allocation to approve work towards the refurbishment of the Capitol Theatre and equipment for the operation of the venue as detailed in section 3 of this report. So that's part 1 and part 2. Approves the award of contracts required to facilitate the recommended refurbishment to the winning suppliers named on existing framework agreements and or following a procurement exercise and or following the grant of a procurement exemption. And 3, delegates authority to either the Director of Communities or Head of Legal and Democratic Services in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Leisure, Culture and Green Spaces to finalise the terms of and enter into the required contracts above noted. And also that Cabinet recommends to Council to reprofile 846,000 of capital budget for the refurbishment works from the 26-27 to the 25-26 to create a total capital budget in 25-26 of 1.526 million. That's the interim report that I wish to make. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Leader. Just because I made a mistake 2 years ago or whenever it was when I questioned the costs at council from the original scheme, the total refurbishment costs of 7.2 million that you just mentioned, does that include contingency costs or not, basically? I wrote 7.2 million down as you said it, so perhaps I misheard.
Was it 10 point? So David, I'll let you respond, but yeah, go on.
Well, I mean, I've got a total of 10.2 million. 10 point.
Page 371.
So can I re-ask, is the 10.2 million
So nobody else has got their microphones on, so I'll just say, yes, the 10.2 million does include the contingency.
I'm sorry, I haven't
Sorry,
got
my
sorry,
microphone's
I'm sorry, I
not
haven't got
on
my
either.
microphone on.
I'm very sorry.
I was just saying I'm not going to put my hand on my heart and say it's not going to do that, but I would very much be upset, like you, if I realised we had gone over that.
Thank you, councillor. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Leader. I read the report with a matter of interest, a little bit of alarm as well. Looking at paragraph 3.3, it talks about ASHPs. It seems that we're obsessed with these things, and my question really to the cabinet member or officers is, have we fully explored electrical heating, for example, in the case, assuming that we can't strengthen the roof, or putting solar panels on the roof instead of ASHPs and using electrical heating instead? Because on the one hand, it seems that it's a done deal, but on the other hand, if I read in phase 2, the 5th or 6th bullet point, there's a question about it. So my question really is, apart from a doctrinal approach maybe of wanting to do air source heat pumps, which I am quite skeptical about, frankly, have we absolutely exhausted the other options, like electrical heating instead of gas heating?
Yeah, we are exploring all options, and we have to explore all options, because I think, as you picked up, there is a question of air source heat pumps, and actually, I don't think it's wrong to say that we have to make sure that the weight of those can be taken by a roof, and we therefore have to explore other possibilities, and electrical is one of them, and we will be doing that, and that is part of the officer's remit this year, before we actually get into doing any work next year.
I think I'll just add that I believe roof strengthening is not the only consideration. Planning permission is going to be required to actually do this, and there are, factors to be considered. So yes, we do have to keep an open mind to other possibilities as well.
Yeah, I mean, noise is one of the big factors, of course, which everybody's aware of. I mean, it wasn't flippant suggestion that if you don't put the heat pumps there, that you put solar panels there because they're not making any noise. What I wouldn't advocate is actually putting any battery storage in the roof, but I mean, you put that somewhere else, but I'll just leave that with you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other comments from other members present on this one? No? Anything from other cabinet members? No? In which case, can we go to the vote on the recommendations, please? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to item 16, because we've already done 15. Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Paul Clark, Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. You may speak on any matters you wish to bring to the Cabinet's attention.
Thank you, Leader. We've already exhausted the task and finish group, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Item 17, the forward plan. This item is for noting. I take it that no cabinet members have anything to add on this. No? Good. Item 18, matters of special urgency. There are no urgent matters, so I bid you all a good evening and thank you very much.